Welcome to another episode of Municipal Focus. My name is Kevin Tocci, and I'll be your host for the next 30 minutes. And we try to use this particular show as opposed to Crosstalk is more focused on Whitman and Hanson issues. Municipal Focus is a different vehicle where we can use it for local issues. Municipal Focus, we can kind of go a little bit more broader, and we can bring in guests from larger, whether it's instead of just being local, it could be state, county, and beyond. Today's guest is a gentleman who's been here before, as we've had a little bit of a Plymouth County review. He is the chairman of the Plymouth County Commissioners, Dan Pallotta.
How you doing? Good to see you. Thanks for having me.
Good to see you again as well. I will make a small disclaimer, as I was going to go cash without if I don't have a tie, and Dan insisted. He's like, I must wear a tie. I want to present well. So what today's show is going to be a little bit of a mix. We're going to talk a little bit of latest with county issues, but also we are immersed in a post-primary, where general election is a couple of months away.
Yep. We got a lot of races this year.
A lot of races. Dan is, other than being someone who is an operative for the county and its best interests, he's also somebody who's a bit of a political prognosticator. As he starred recently during primary coverage on a local radio station.
Prognosticator is too big a word, I think.
Is it really?
I think it's too big a
Analyst.
word. Analyst, maybe.
Analyst. But he did such an astounding job by kind of breaking down and looking at certain things. I said, Dan, you and I got to do something on cable. He's like, okay, book it.
Book it.
And that's why
here
we
we
sit
are.
here. Here we are. So let's first start off with the county.
Yeah, so, last time we talked about the county programs, and the county's doing pretty well. But we are currently in the process of relocating the Plymouth County Registry of Deeds Brockton satellite office.
Right.
So the county commissioners sold the former district court, which was a building that we had
West Elm Street.
On West Elm Street. So when the state built the new district court, there was no need for that building, and we had a couple of offices rented by federal elected officials, and we had the bankruptcy court there and the registry of deeds. But it was really the building was not being used to its capacity, and it costs a lot of money to run the building. So we sold the building this year to the Seventh-day Adventists, who are going to use it for the Brockton Parish. They're excited about it. We're excited about it. And so we had to find a location for the Registry of Deeds Brockton office. So the Brockton office is going to go to the former DA's, where the former DA's offices were, which is actually the O'Malley building, after DA O'Malley. That's the legal name of it. So we started construction on that this week.
The corner of Cottage and Belmont Street?
Cottage and Belmont Street, directly across the street from the Brockton Superior Court. So, the county has a lot of properties in Brockton, and, we wanted to keep that building. We think it has viability as to the county. The building's in remarkably good shape. The DA didn't like it. It was a little small for him. And he wanted.
He's moving around the corner, right?
He moved around the corner and into an extremely nice space, something that Plymouth County couldn't.
The old federal building, if I'm correct.
His space. They built it out, for 20 years from now. So he couldn't grow where he was with us, and we couldn't renovate the building to his needs while he was in the building. So he left, and that gave us an opportunity to move John in there and rent the remainder of the building. So we're excited about it. People will see a transformation of the facade. When you go down Belmont Street, it's in tough shape. It's been in tough shape. Mm-hmm. The facade's going to be redone. The new lobby's going to go in, and new registry deeds is going to go in. And we're doing it like we do everything at the county, very efficiently. And the Mayor Carpenter's pretty happy about it, that we're staying in downtown. As you know, the mayor does everything he can to keep everybody in downtown. So we're excited about it, and by December you'll be doing your registry of deed transactions in the new building. So it's another major accomplishment that this group of commissioners, Commissioner Hanley and Commissioner Wright and Pallotta, have done in the past 6 years. Something that should have been done a long time ago, but things take time in government, unfortunately.
It's interesting you mentioned the mayor of Mayor Bill Carpenter, Mayor of Brockton. He's got a shorter walk now. If there's any breaking news with the district attorney, he just walks right out his
door.
Right out his door, and there's the DA's office. And then if he really needs anything to do, and meet up with John Buckley, who is the Register of Deeds, he just kind of goes through maybe a couple of blocks.
Right. So it's going to be good for Brockton. It shows the commitment of the county to stay in Brockton. Brockton is actually legally a shire town. So Plymouth has 2 shire towns: the town of Plymouth, and the city of Brockton. So the county in the turn of the century had a fight over where the county seat would be. Would it be in Brockton or would it be in Plymouth? And currently we're in Plymouth. So. It's a good thing. It's a good thing. It's really good for Brockton that we're staying there.
And it's also part of the revitalization of the downtown corridor. I myself attended something today in regards to yet another step forward, trying to, I guess, make it, you're talking about an urban center.
Right.
That, it's not like it's the 30s and 40s where it had such a vibrant downtown. Once the mall was built, it seems as though a lot of the folks, the traffic you saw, it changed. And so what they're trying to do is they're trying to...
Urban planners missed the boat when suburban sprawl came, and we lost a lot of downtowns, not just Brockton's.
Right.
But I think Brockton's gonna climb back. I think you're gonna see, with the economy rocking the way it's rocking under President Trump, I think you're gonna see Brockton slowly climb back, because a lot of people that were unemployed came from that general area in Plymouth County, and they're employed. There's too many jobs and not enough employees right now. And when people are working, things are generally better all across the board, and I think you're going to see Brockton. I think you can see Brockton step it up.
One of the things that I also mentioned at the beginning of this particular program is that we got a lot of races.
We got a ton of races,
and I got
ton of races. You got the list.
I got the list right here, and while this is a program that is produced in the Whitman-Hanson area, it's notable to note that. There are some open seats on the South Shore, a lot of conversation going on, and that the representatives in our area usually works as a collective, a legislative delegation down here on the South Shore. So some of the races that we're mentioning, you're going, huh? What's that got to do with Whitman or Hanson?
Right.
Well, when it comes to being able to get votes, get people to get on board for certain initiatives, whether it's additional school funding, local aid, certain budget amendments, some of these communities, some of these seats in the past were assisted by the folks who represent them.
South Shore, it's pretty partisan right now, and it'll be partisan till November 4th. And then on November 5th, the D and the R gets tossed in the bucket, and it becomes regional. And one of the things as a county commissioner, we've always been able to call on what we call the legislative delegation when we needed help. And it didn't matter whether it was a D or an R. They signed their name to what needed to be done, and they helped us push things through. I mean, we've been pretty successful getting things through to help the county and correct some of the inadequacies facing counties with the leadership of the South Shore delegation. And I think regardless of who wins these races, that cooperation will continue.
Probably probably one of the final questions I'll ask that is county related. I know that yourself and your colleagues on the county commissioners have been trying to get more money back from the state, the big brother. While you give them revenues, you would hope that you'd get more receipts back.
It's not about us giving them revenues. It's about you giving them revenues. You sell your house. You have a deed transfer tax. That transfer tax, 89.675 cents, goes to the Commonwealth of Massachusetts. Almost 90 cents. And That's not right. It's our taxes. We're paying the taxes. Those taxes should stay and help the 27 communities of Plymouth County. We're going to fight that battle till the last breath. This year we got pretty far with it. We got everyone to acknowledge it's a problem. And we're hoping in the next legislative cycle with the delegation that gets elected in November that we cross that finish line and change some of that inequities. We're not looking for all of it. We're not even looking for half of it. We're looking for the percentages to change so that the counties that are actively working on your behalf can have their fair share of the pie for their citizens.
We have 2 open seats that there are suitors for. One of them being Jim Cantwell's former seat, 4th Plymouth District.
Correct.
My understanding is there are multiple suitors. You actually got 3 people: Ed O'Connell, Patrick Kearney, and Nathan Powell. And as it works, Ed's a Republican, Patrick is a Democrat, and Nathaniel is an independent. Give me your thoughts on that particular race, because
that's an interesting race. Because
I myself thought one of those names in there, and again, I was part of a political forum,
right,
and gauging the candidates. Patrick's a nice guy, but I kind of felt that Sean Costello had polish and presence.
I was shocked that Sean didn't win, and the reason I was shocked is the same reason why I think that Ed's probably going to win, and that is that Marshfield dominates that district. So I hate to say it, but most people don't really dig into the weeds on what the candidates stand for. They look at the candidate, they like the candidate, name recognition. They drive the human nature on filling in an oval. I wish it was, IQ test, give them some questions they have to answer, but it doesn't really work that way. Scituate hasn't occupied that seat since 71 years, I think, 71, 73 years, somewhere in there. And I think it's going to be difficult for Kearney to overcome that. But based on how hard he worked and the result he had against Costello, it's possible. I see a pathway for him to win, but I think it's going to be, I think Ed squeaks by.
Very interesting, and especially knowing that the guy who was in the seat prior did a lot of work, and I thought that he received a lot of accolades from both sides of the aisle, even though he was a Democrat. Do you feel that Nathan even stands a chance as an independent?
Independents don't do well in Plymouth County.
Why is that?
I just think that the average person doesn't accept that independency yet. Every year, I think it's going to be the year we have an independent. This could be the year. Bernie almost was an independent in the presidential election when they rigged it. He became he technically became a mouthpiece for a portion of the party that was really not what the party stood for on their platform or anything else. So I think the day of an independent may come because it's become so divisive. I don't think it's this year. I think it's probably 2022, 24, somewhere in there. I don't see it in the near future. That being said, I don't recall an independent ever winning countywide. So locally it's tough.
Okay. Then we get another open seat, Tom Coulter, who for 10 years, I think it was 1 year during the primary, he actually was able to get people to vote for him as a Democrat and a Republican. I still remember it vividly.
Right. He had a choice. He had a choice of what he wanted to be because he won both nominations.
Won both.
Which was an extremely successful way of blocking out a write-in because there are some write-ins that have made it in and now candidates. Right. So Lenatra versus Trishelli.
Kathy Lenatra, yeah. Joe
I think
Trishelli.
That's the third Plymouth.
12th.
12th Plymouth. Okay.
12th Plymouth. A lot of territory.
I think Trishelli's got a rough road ahead of him, but I see a path for him to do it. I really do. He's a veteran. He's well spoken. His name's out there. I think his wife's on the school committee in Plymouth. Yep. Plymouth's vote is pretty close to Kingston's. It's not quite as much as Kingston. But, Kingston's going to drive this, and Lenatra's from Kingston. Lenatra also has the two Toms pushing hard for it. Tom O'Brien, who held the seat 10 years ago. And
who is with the county?
He's
what?
The county treasurer.
County treasurer.
And a very good one at that. I wish he was pushing Trishelli, but he's not because of party. And and Tom Calter, who succeeded Tom. So it's really Trishelli against Lenatra, Tom, and Tom.
Sure. And it's interesting to mention also is that Tom Calter is the town administrator for Kingston. And his boss is Kathy Lenatra.
So that's a whole bowl of spaghetti that's got to be really tough to stay.
It'll be tough, but I think Joe, but let's not forget, I believe, wasn't Joe appointed to an agency or appointed to serve in an office by the governor? In the veterans, in as far as veterans?
Yeah,
services?
he works for the state. He can't ask for money. I mean, one of his biggest handicaps is he can't ask for money.
Sure.
And, the fact that he got as far as he did shows you the tenacity of him as a worker. Summer Schmaling, who if you had asked me to prognosticate, I would have said never had a chance in the primary.
She was also in the school committee.
But she worked her tail off. And you know what? She did extremely well, and I was so wrong about how well she did. And I was wrong. She surprised me.
I'm going to save this tape. Dan admits he was wrong.
I was wrong on that one.
He was wrong. Opposite of what Johnny Creed likes to say is, I'm right, or it's over.
It's over. Johnny Creed, it's over.
We had during the primary, another interesting dynamic, and this is where I can meld a couple of different, there were three different races that we were watching on the South Shore that were write-ins, and that was the 5th, Plymouth, which you got Dave DeCoste. Dave DeCoste is your incumbent. 5th, of course, is Norwell, Hanover, Rockland.
Correct. My district.
Your district. Allison DeMung, Democrat, managed to get 150 votes as a write-in.
Yeah, I think she got like 400 or 500.
Yeah.
I mean, Allison's going to be a formidable foe for Dave. Okay. I think Dave squeaks by because, again, it goes to mathematics. Mm-hmm. And, if Dave can hang on or just barely lose Norwell, I think he's going to do a lot better in Rockland than people think, even though Rockland's Democratic. He works his tail off for that town. And Rockland's, I think Rockland's had enough of the past right now. And I think they recognize what, Dave's squeaky clean image for going for the future. And I think Dave's going to do extremely well in Hanover. Hanover is probably one of the most conservative towns on the South Shore, so I think he'll do well there.
And Allison is a sitting selectman in Norwell, right?
She's a sitting selectman and a wonderful person.
Okay. And then we have the 10th Plymouth, that is East Bridgewater, West Bridgewater. It's one precinct in East Bridgewater, all of West Bridgewater, and there's like wards 4, 5, and 6 in Brockton, but there's two precincts in each ward, except all of 6, I think. So this is the 10th Plymouth. And it's state.
Bezanson versus.
No, that's 7th. Hold on.
All right.
Let me lead you. This is the 10th Plymouth district. Again, we're talking
write-ins. Oh, this is Cruz
we're sticking to write-ins
Dubois.
You have Michelle Dubois, who's the sitting state rep. John Cruz, who actually held the seat from 91 to 93, but has had a couple of unsuccessful runs, not only against Christine Canavan, but he did square off against Michelle initially when the seat was open. I guess he mounted a write-in, and they were writing him in for everything from for Congress, Governor's Council, dog catcher, you name it.
Again, I think John's going to win that one.
Really?
I do. And the
Why?
I think Michelle's behavior is not consistent with the values of that district. And the reason you had so many people write him in to everything is because they don't pay attention to the ballot, and they just wanted to get him in there. They wanted to make sure Michelle had an opponent
Yeah.
because they're not happy with her behavior. So I think Cruz cruises to a victory on that. I mean, you're going to have an opportunity to vote for 2 Cruzes on this ballot.
Right, and that's a nice lead-in, because I was also going to talk about another write-in.
Right.
It was kind of on the opposite side of the spectrum, where John's brother Tim is the district attorney in Plymouth County. He is the incumbent, and he's got a John Bradley, who is a former, I believe he worked in Tim's office.
Right.
And he was able to get the 1,000 votes needed across the county to be able to get on the general election ballot on November 6th.
This is another race. So it's countywide. 27 towns is a big area. Tim Cruz, if you've ever seen Tim Cruz speak, you know he's as dedicated to law enforcement and cleaning up the streets as any human being I've ever met. And you know, Tim and I don't agree on much, even though we're in the same party. He and I. Well, I was the landlord; he was the tenant. So we've had more than our fair shares of battles.
A lot of hand.
But I really respect what he does for our district.
Okay.
The Globe, beating him up, Ledger beating him up. Everyone likes to beat up on Tim Cruz. And he goes to work every day with a big smile, and he's doing some serious good things for us with the opioid crisis. He's doing great things for cleaning up the streets, and he's a no-nonsense DA. Not sending Tim Cruz back, I think, would be a mistake. Anytime you have an employee run against a boss, it's not good. It's usually a revenge run or a payback run. Or I didn't like the way you did something. It's an axe to grind run. Tim Cruz is going to rise above it, and you're going to see Tim Cruz win.
Okay. You had mentioned it earlier, and we could bring it up. The 7th Plymouth District. Now, the gentleman who held the seat for 4 terms is now. He'll be a conversation we'll have in just a couple of moments. He's in another race. That's Jeff Deal. But right now you have Allison Sullivan, who is the Republican nominee, and Alex Bezanson, who is the Democratic nominee. Both of them slugging it out. Both of them did well during the primary, but both of them stake a claim to the town of Abington. Of course, the district is Abington, East Bridgewater, and Whitman.
Right.
Give me your thoughts on this particular race.
This is an interesting race because you have a selectman in Whitman that's Bezanson.
No, right.
Who's a Republican.
Yeah.
And you have Alex, who's I think he was a selectman or is a selectman in Abington.
One term, but he's also served on various other boards. Yep.
So the name Bezanson's pretty well familiar in 2 of those towns. So it gets to East Bridgewater, which is diehard Republican, usually in a gubernatorial race. So I think Allison has something that none of the other Republican candidates have. She's a machine behind him. Let's call a spade a spade. Her father's won more elections than all of us combined, and was beloved by both parties. And she's coming from good stock, and she's well presented. And I think this one's going to be a lot closer than people think. And I really don't know which one's going to win. I don't know enough. I obviously want to see Allison win because I'm a Republican. But at the same time, I know Alex, and Alex is a good guy too. I mean, a lot of these people on both sides, like I said, we throw the D and the R away at the end of the race.
You vote for the person.
You're voting for the person. Yeah. So I think that Bezanson is going to have to work extremely hard to overcome the Sullivan machine.
Couple more races we'll talk about. We've got less than 5 minutes left. Charlie Baker, who has been dubbed probably one of the most popular governors we've had here in the state. Although there was an interesting vote during the primary. Scott Lively was able to get a nice chunk of vote. While it wasn't half, he got close to 40% for folks voting for him for the nomination. So you got the governor going up against Jay Gonzalez, who is a former finance guy.
ANF.
Yeah, a former guy who was with Deval Patrick under the Patrick administration.
Baker wins easily because Baker is simple. His message gets across. There aren't any giant scandals under his administration. He's cleaning up a lot of things. I think the Lively vote, I mean, if you read anything about Lively, you didn't really vote for Lively. You were just sending Charlie a message.
Yeah,
and I think Charlie heard the message, and that is that, you know, the conservative side of the party wants him to step it up a little bit because he's been a little too cozy with Leo and whomever the state,
the Democratic leadership,
whoever the state Senate president is, because that's been a revolving door for the past 2 years.
Okay. We'll talk about this, the final race we'll talk about. Again, I mentioned him a few minutes ago, former state rep, or outgoing state rep, Jeff Deal, able to take on Beth Lindstrom and John Kingston. Kingston spending a lot of money, TV ads. Jeff easily was able to get the Republican nomination to take on Elizabeth Warren. Give me your thoughts on this race.
First of all, Jeff has a pathway to win. He's got a mountain to climb, but he's got a path up the mountain. I think he can do it. And there's 2 reasons why I think he can do it. Number one, the way he ran against Kingston, I didn't get a mailer. I don't know if you got a mailer, but I didn't get a mailer.
I got a mailer.
He did everything.
Yeah, I got one mailer.
He did everything electronically. And his way of campaigning blew away Kingston. And if he continues that type of campaigning, I think Elizabeth Warren's going to be shocked. Okay. I think the country's going to be shocked, and I think the Democrats are going to be shocked. Because, you know, every time I opened my phone, there was a Jeff Deal ad. And every time I opened an app, there was a Jeff Deal ad. And it was usually about Elizabeth Warren. And the other thing is, Elizabeth Warren hasn't been in the state. Jeff has this wonderful app that says, "Where's Warren?" And it tells you where she is. It's never in Massachusetts, although she'll be in Massachusetts for the next 60 days, no doubt. But she's always in some other place crusading about some injustice to somebody. And that's not representing Massachusetts. And that job is to represent Massachusetts. So I see a pathway for him. The other thing is, most people that I talk to, other than my diehard liberal friends, they don't like her. And I think that's going to go against her. And it reminds me of Scott Brown Coakley, where people didn't like Coakley. It had nothing to do with what each of them represented. They just didn't like her. I think the same thing is playing out right now with Elizabeth, and I think you're going to see the senator go down and a new senator go in by a hair.
Is that your political upset, or do you have
That is my political upset.
Really?
That's my political upset.
What would the percentage points be? I mean,
he wins by a point.
Really?
It's going to be within a point.
Wow.
It's going to be he's going to get crushed in Boston, Northampton, and Springfield, and he's going to rock and roll everywhere else.
In a lot of the conservative pockets, he'll be able to do well.
I think you're going to be surprised.
I want to thank you again for coming in.
Thank you.
And being a part of the program. We'll have to have you back in a couple of months.
I can't wait to come in.
We'll have you back in after the election, and then we can kind of break it down.
And you can see how bad I did or how good I did.
Yes.
If I get 100%, you're buying me a steak?
Well, I wouldn't go that far. I'll give you a picture of a steak.
There you go.
That's all the time that we have here on Municipal Focus. And we thank you for tuning in. Any questions, you can always send something to info@WHCA.tv. For Dan Pallotta, of course, Paul Watts behind the glass, I'm Kevin Tocci. Have yourself a great day.